For EB 92.7 FM Chester. Winners, football, basketball, baseball,
John Fredericks,
soccer, golf,
America's Godzilla of truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now Jay Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network. John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Godzilla Wins. Welcome. We are getting started with episode 126. There's a screen. All right. I was looking to see if we were even live on the air there for a second. All right. Welcome everybody to Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. I am joined by Jay Delsing, host of Golf with Jay Delsing, which directly follows our show. Jay, welcome to the show.
Good morning, guys.
Morning. Peter Kriebel, our man on the ground in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thank you for joining us. We will be joined by Jack Fredericks as soon as he gets some technical difficulties sorted out here in the next 15 or 20 minutes. John is off doing whatever John does on Saturdays. It's not this show. I suspect he's driving through the barren wilderness of Western Pennsylvania, and he is without cell service for at least the moment, so he will be joining us for the second hour to talk some NFL, but he will miss out on our college talk and all of our sort of just broad sports takes that are happening today. We have a pile of top 25 games, really meaningful games for a lot of teams. We're going to be talking about how Indiana just continues to win. They keep climbing up the rankings. The latest thing I've seen is they're actually projected to make the college football playoff, which none of us saw coming to start the season. Even the most diehard Indiana fans probably didn't see it. Notre Dame, Navy, Illinois, Oregon, Mizzou, Bama, Texas, Vandy, LSU, TAMU, all of those ranked games, all of those meaningful games for college football playoff seeding and just getting in general. That'll be the first hour. Second hour, we're going to be talking about Tua. We're going to be talking about Jameis Winston, the new heart and soul of Cleveland football. We're going to be breaking down a whole bunch of games, talking about Thursday night football reactions. But first, we will be giving out some gambling picks on this show. That's sort of our shtick, but it is for entertainment purposes only. And if you have a gambling problem, I want you to call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. If you live in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. If you live in Massachusetts, call 877-GHOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. If you live in New York, 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. It's 1-800-522-4700. In Kansas and New Hampshire, 888-79-7777. Or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit opgr.org if you're living in Oregon. Jack, welcome to the show.
Morning. Happy to be here. It's like pitch black. It's like pitch black out here. I know. I'm on the porch today. That's just the way it is. But yeah, it's getting darker earlier in Arizona. It's staying darker later. When the time change happens, it'll be a little bit better. But I'm glad I found a lamp to spotlight me, because if you're looking on the stream, I look like I'm in complete darkness, which is almost true. But
Yeah, people do it all the time. I've watched plenty of news programs where people are reporting at night from various places. Luckily we're an audio mostly zone, anyways. All right, so welcome to the show, guys. We got a whole bunch of things to talk about. I guess we'll just lead with the big thing. I mean, the big thing is we wrote it down on the show sheet. We were having a little bit of fun. The classic underdog story, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. And we were all kind of making a joke about it. And then the first game happens, and my first takeaway was, whoa, maybe we just got the two best teams to make the best World Series possible after game one, because that was like an incredible game capped by Freddie Freeman, who's had so many heroic moments in the postseason and throughout his career, hitting that go-ahead grand slam in the 10th inning to win. I mean, I wasn't excited for this World Series until basically I started watching the game, and then it was nuts. It had everything you'd want. It had great pitching at times. It had timely hitting at times. It had base running stuff. It had weird sort of mental lapses where some doubles turned into triples. It had everything you could want in a baseball game, and it was just game one. Was anyone else watching the game last night, thinking about it?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
What'd you think, Jay?
Oh, I'm a baseball junkie, and so for the Dodgers to be playing the Yankees, it's MLB's dream scenario, right?
Oh.
Anytime you get a market like St. Louis or Cleveland or these smaller markets, that the MLB's just like, oh, come on. And I'm in Cardinal Nation here. We've won the second most championships in MLB history, and it's probably a nightmare for them. This is the bigger story, you guys, and is Shohei Ohtani is probably maybe the best baseball player to ever play the game. And he hasn't even been able to pitch this year, but he hit over 50 home runs. He stole over 50 bases. And next year, he has a legitimate chance to win the Triple Crown in hitting and the Cy Young in pitching. He's filthy. He's just going through Tommy John surgery. He hasn't been able to throw it all this year. He's a 30-year-old kid who just got paid $700 million. They also, for the nerds like me, his contract is kind of an epic contract because he deferred $680 million in a 10-year contract. He's being paid to. So what does that do to the luxury tax? What does that do to the entire pay structure in MLB? I'm in the weeds on all that stuff with arbitration and the clubs own these kids for 6 years. But it's super cool to watch. And at the end of the day, you guys, the little things are the things that are going to change this World Series over. Nate, you said it beautifully. Doubles turning into triples, mental errors, small plays like not throwing to the correct base, not hitting the cutoff man, wound up costing the Yankees a ballgame last night.
Definitely. Anyone else want to chime in on the game last night and what they were kind of thinking about, Peter?
Yeah, well, I can't offer, such a nuanced perspective. My baseball career ended in third grade, but just from a sports cinema, overlap perspective, that was incredible. I mean, my friend who's a big baseball fan had it on, and I'm watching it, and of course I know about Shohei. Everyone knows about Shohei, and he comes up with a chance to win it, and you're thinking, I mean, couldn't be any better. Connects with the ball. Did he get all? And the guy makes the diving catch, and they're able to advance, and then it's Freddie Freeman, 35-year-old future Hall of Famer Freddie Freeman. That was your twist. It wasn't Shohei. I mean, Shohei still played a part, but, kind of an unlikely hero and good enough to make a non-baseball fan walk away saying, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, Freddie Freeman's been beset by injuries in this postseason. He's been playing through a pretty painful ankle sprain. People weren't expecting much of him because they had an open base and they walked the batter in front of Freeman to try and get at Freeman because they thought that maybe he was going to be a little bit hobbled because he hasn't done much this postseason. And then all he did was all he's ever done in his career, which is just come up in like the most gigantic moment in the most gigantic way and send it over the fence. Jack?
Yeah, you can't walk. You can't walk someone in the World Series to get to Freddie Freeman. I understand the trends of it's been a rough postseason for him. He's a little bit hobbled. Let's go after Freeman. But it's just these guys, when they get to the World Series, when they get to some of these big moments, they're always going to deliver. We talked about Juan Soto doing the same thing for New York at times in the ALCS. That's going to happen here in the postseason. I really got sucked back into baseball because of this, because of the Dodgers Guardians series was so good. Every game was ending in the 10th inning, ending with a walk-off, ending in the 9th inning, just crazy bullpen meltdowns. And, that's the beautiful thing about playoff baseball is it can manufacture, as Peter put it, sort of sports cinema. It can manufacture those moments of high intensity, because even though there's a pitch clock now, it's a very slow game. And so that's why the World Series is always so much fun, because if you get these intense moments and these close moments, you're kind of marinating in it constantly, just waiting for the next pitch. And that's, I think, what we got last night. We got that in the Yankees series. I think the Yankees are incapable of not producing like these highly dramatic, incredible moments in the postseason for whatever reason. Win or lose, they always seem to be right there in the moment. And last night was another example of that. So I'm super excited about the series as a whole. I think it'll be I don't think the Yankees like imploded their bullpen. It was a close game. They get in a little bit of trouble in the 10th inning and things go haywire. That happens. But I don't think it's a sign that the Yankees are in some sort of trouble. It's just, these bullpens, they get a little bit shaky here at the end. And Freeman playing hero is, I was not shocked just because of everything we know about Freddie Freeman. Stanton is going to be a hero in some of these games. Soto's going to be a hero. Judge will be a hero. Shohei will be a hero. Like, there will be moments for all of these guys. So it really is. I mean, we poke fun at like this being like the two teams that everybody hates the most type of situation, but these teams people hate these teams for a reason. It's because they have all the best players on them. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch these two teams go at it for 7 games. I hope it's 7 games anyway.
I mean, yeah, and it's one of those things where us as folks on this panel who are fans of different teams that are not the Dodgers or the Yankees, it can be sort of a frustrating or meh experience when we're looking into it. But then the game gets turned on, and the fan bases for the Dodgers and the Yankees, as annoying as they can be at times as a fan of a different team, make the atmosphere for those games so electric in ways that I just don't know if you experience. Like, I don't know if the experience, it just feels like the excitement, you can feel it through the TV in a way that I'm not sure if we would experience that sort of excitement if it was the Nationals playing the Yankees or something like that. It's something about just these fan bases and these places that they're playing that really drive up the intensity. And Jay talked about this, and I was sort of something that I wanted to talk about, which is Shohei's been throwing since like end of August, early September, kind of trying to loosen things up and see if maybe he can go a little bit. And Dave Roberts basically in the pre-World Series press conference was like, absolutely not. Never going to happen. Never going to put Shohei out there on the mound. But if we're just talking about sports cinema and this big stage, like, how freaking awesome would it be to see Shohei come out and pitch a few innings at some point during this? Maybe things get a little out of hand for the bullpen. Maybe they run out of some quality arms, and then you just trot Shohei out there and see what he can do. See if he can stop the bleeding. I mean, is anyone else just dying to see that?
Oh, I'm dying to see it. I just think they've invested so much money into a 10-year contract that they probably won't. But it's just remarkable to me, Nate, a lot of great points by everybody, but these teams don't win. They win their divisions. They roll through the regular season, and then things happen, and it's mind-boggling because they outspend everybody. To Jack's point, they have all the best players. How would you like to have Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman at the end of your lineup? I mean, okay, you don't pitch to Freeman, you pitch to Betts, and you got a lefty versus righty. The only reason they went to Freedom against Freeman is because of slightly better odds at getting him out lefty on lefty. But in terms of the cinema, to Peter's point, it was just an ideal situation. And then on the Yankee side, you've got Soto, Judge, Stanton. I mean, that's a pitcher's nightmare. I mean, those pitchers aren't sleeping thinking about that barrage. So I don't know, man. I watched Otani pitch a lot when he was playing for the Angels, and you want to talk about something hard to find? Angel baseball. I mean, those guys, it's like they live on an island somewhere, You're like, where the hell are you guys? But now that he's with the Dodgers, it's going to be fun. And I can't. He's got great stuff, Nate. He's got great stuff. I forget how many games he won before he got hurt last year, but to have somebody like the modern day Babe Ruth is basically what we're seeing, guys. Is pretty incredible. The shot he hit in the ninth, was it the ninth inning? Did he hit? Almost went through the right field wall. I mean, he hit it so hard he almost got thrown out at second base because Soto turned around and the ball hit him. It hit the wall and hit him, and he almost threw him out at second.
And I would say, like, Dave Roberts is not always the most honest manager I've ever come across. Like, there's plenty of times when Dave Roberts has said one thing in a press conference and then immediately done the exact opposite in a game time scenario. He's kind of always doing that. So I wouldn't be shocked if we did see from Shohei a little bit, because you're right. It's one thing to say Shohei's going to start game 3. It's another thing in game 6, tied 4-4. Your bullpen is spent and Shohei's just standing there. It's like, you're not going to put him in. You're not going to call his number at that point. Everybody is going to be waiting for it. The announcers are going to be mentioning it every 10 seconds. You're telling me game 7, he's not going to be your closer. I mean, just the temptation. I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not an MLB manager, but I'm not disciplined enough in those moments to not call on my best pitcher to deliver a key out in the 8th or 9th inning or the 12th inning of a high stakes World Series game. I think we all want it. I think it will probably happen. I'm not sure that Dave Roberts is the most reliable source of information on this. He's always lying about stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, there was always this sense, he was so emphatic during the press conference. There's always this sense that there might have been like a little bit of like he doth protest too much, like sort of situation, like, all right, dude. Because the other part of it is, Shohei's like great, and it would just be, it would be like such like a huge moment, and to sort of Jay's point about like they've spent all this money on Shohei, they don't want to rush him along in the Tommy John, they don't want to create any further injuries. The Dodgers have been spending exorbitant amounts of money for the last decade. And all they have to show for it is one World Series in a COVID year and a shortened season. So, like, on some level, you have to think, like, money be damned. Like, we have to just do whatever it takes, even if it means that he's on the shelf for another year as a pitcher. Like, ultimately, you're not playing to win 100 games in the regular season. You're playing to win the World Series. And if Shohei gives you that opportunity, then, like, and he's throwing, well in sort of bullpens, or he's, at least sort of like loosening up every once in a while. He's not a guy that needs a lot of work to stay sort of sharp. I mean, there's well-documented stories of him introducing new pitches into his repertoire after like a half a bullpen session, kind of like tweaking his slider and being like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Like, this is fine. He's such an unusual physical and mental freak that he's able to do that it doesn't seem unusual to just like look at him while he's just sitting there on the bench and be like, hey, like, get ready, like, get loose, man. Like, let's see what you got.
I guess we're being a little naive in thinking that this isn't just about protecting their main attraction for the next season. Like, maybe the Dodgers are at a win at all costs mentality with their World Series win. Maybe the front office and the ownership is telling Dave Roberts that they're, like Jay said, they're not going to risk, having like some sort of injury that sidelines him until July of the next season for a high leverage situation that is not even an option for any other team and hasn't been since like 1932. So I mean, maybe it's a little bit of that too. Is just like, hey, if we can't win the big one without Shohei on the mound, then that's fine. We'll regroup next year, but we're not going to risk shutting him down for a Tommy John surgery or some crazy thing like that, and losing a potential, hundreds of millions of dollars in ticket sales and in TV deals next year. I mean,
that temptation, though, boys, would be insane. insane. I mean, think about it. Can you throw one inning? What could that be? 8 pitches, 12 pitches? I mean, come on.
See how it goes. You know? Just try
Yeah.
it out.
You know, you got a fast car. Let's drive this thing.
Right. Like, yeah, you're going to take a fast car. There's nobody on the road. And you're not just going to see how fast it goes. Like, come on. Like, you got it there. That's sort of like my mentality. And as we know in baseball, you can spend gazillions of dollars on teams, but it does not necessarily guarantee success. The Mets spent $1 bazillion on a team and it's yielded basically no results. This year was sort of the first time, and it was after they sort of jettisoned a lot of their payroll. The Astros have spent quite a bit of money and been a sort of dynamic dynasty for quite a while. It looks like their window is closing to be sort of regular championship contenders in the near future. Even if Shohei's contract is, for the next 10 years or whatever, like there's no guarantee that the Dodgers will have a team around him to contend again like this. They might not ever have this type of team rolling like this now, So I feel like in some way you do have to kind of pull out all the stops, because just having one player does not necessarily guarantee team success in baseball. I mean, Shohei and Mike Trout were the two best players in baseball for a number of years on the Angels, and they never even made the playoffs. So I just don't see why you'd hold back, but maybe that's just a little bit too much gambler in me. All right, we got to move on. We got to move on to some other sort of cinematic stories, dramatic storylines. Before we do that, I got to talk a little bit about Healthy Cell. We're all getting a little long in the tooth. Most of us, except for Peter. Lucky for Peter, he doesn't really need this Healthy Cell joint in mobility yet, but you stick around long enough and you will. I play a lot of golf in my free time. I know that Jay has spent a lot of time swinging golf clubs as well. Lower back gets a little tight, maybe the shoulder. And, we all need something that can loosen it up. And if you're looking for something to loosen up some of your day-to-day aches and pains, check out Healthy Cell. Go to healthycell.com, type in promo code Godzilla. You're going to get a screaming deal on it. It's really the best thing. All of us take it here. John takes it. John usually does the live read. It's done wonders for John and his sort of mobility, but I know that all of us can stand behind this product. I know Jack stands behind it, Jay, myself. Really great product. So go to healthycell.com, type in promo code Godzilla, get a little money back, and do something good for your health and your body. All right.
If it can make John mobile, then you know it's working.
Yeah, then you know that, it's basically a miracle drug at this point.
I kind of took that long in the tooth comment personally, guys. I mean, look at you guys and me. I mean, I look like I'm some dead over here.
Well, not yet, Jay. Not until Shohei pitches in that 9th inning.
Yeah, and then it's over. Won't be able to find me anymore, Jack.
Let's talk a little bit about the other sort of big storyline. It was a storyline that was meant for the media more than it was for any sort of contention in a sports team at this point. Expectations are not ultra high for the Lakers unless you're an ultra Laker diehard. There are many good teams in the NBA, and the Lakers look to be maybe a tick below them as LeBron ages. But the huge storyline on opening night of the NBA season was, of course, LeBron James and Bronny, his son, playing together for the first time in NBA history that a father and son have competed together. What did you guys make of that? I mean, it wasn't, the most electric 3 minutes of basketball that Bronny was in the game, snagged a rebound, missed a couple shots. But it's huge for the sport. And I guess for me, it had only happened in baseball prior to this and in hockey. In sort of limited instances. And I think that my big takeaway was that it really just speaks to the longevity that athletes are able to achieve in the NBA that almost seems unthinkable. It just didn't seem like 10 or 15 years ago that you would see this sort of longevity of career in basketball. You saw it very seldom. Michael Jordan came back and forth a couple times, but really you just didn't see a lot of guys sort of aging this gracefully in the NBA. You can see it in baseball. There are easier ways to sort of hide deficiencies and flaws, but in basketball, it's tougher. I mean, there's just 5 of you out there and you got to play offense and defense. There's nowhere to hide like you can in baseball. What did you guys make of that big storyline? Was it just media hype and nonsense, or was it a legitimately cool thing? I mean, Jay, I know you're a father, so you probably have a sort of special connection to the idea of sort of, what that would mean to play sort of a professional sport with a child.
Oh, I mean, Dave, I can't even imagine the feeling. I think it was a lot of media hype. I think mostly it was throwing a bone to LeBron.
Of
I
course.
mean, it was
It's
really
like a career achievement award.
absolutely. It's most meaningful to somebody like LeBron. I mean, when you're playing a sport that's so physically demanding, and when you look at our physical peaks are done from the time we're like, in our early to mid 20s, and look what LeBron's done. I mean, it's a massive testimony to him taking care of his body. I look at Derrick Henry when we get talked in the NFL. I mean, you want to talk about a freak in a sport where you're running cars into one another, and he's still doing it. But the NBA is the same thing. I mean, I played basketball not at a super high level, but through high school and stuff, and it's the most physical non-contact sport you're ever going to play. And he's playing at the highest level. He's been the best player. He's been the face of the NBA. And so this is kind of in my opinion, a tribute to LeBron. The Lakers can pretty much do whatever they want. So it's one game. They threw him in there. Bronny's going to go to the G League. Bronny's skill level is not NBA. I don't think anybody else drafts Bronny other than the Lakers. So I think the entire thing was like, hey, we're doing this for you, LeBron. We can do it. We're probably not going to win an NBA championship this year. I mean, there's an outside chance, but I don't think it's a great chance. And it was more media hype. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool, but at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses, and he's not going to contribute to that.
I think it would be more cool if he were good. I mean, I hate to kind of put too fine a point on that, but to me, it would be more exciting if Bronny was like actually a good basketball player, not because of like the nepotism and the kind of like LeBron forces the Lakers to draft his son. He plays all this stuff in the preseason, in the summer league. He looks okay, not great. He's definitely a G League player. We're going to see him rotate between the G League and LA. What that kind of means to me is like almost like if LeBron were on his farewell tour. It's like Bronny is going to be there for the Cleveland game. They'll put him on the roster for the Miami game. They'll put him on the roster in Boston. But when they're just playing like Sacramento on a Tuesday and they're actually trying to win basketball games, they'll make him play in South Bay in the G League. So it would be a lot cooler if he were good and we could just like watch these two kind of on the court together. But he's undersized. He's not as quick as in NBA players. He stinks from three. He's not very good from two. It's also an incredible marketing opportunity for LeBron and Bronny. I mean, I saw a commercial where it was a Nike commercial, and it was like LeBron is like pouring, like it was pretty cringe actually.
He's like hazing the rookie.
Yeah, like pouring like Fruity Pebbles into the car, and then he's like drives like Bronny like opens the door and he drives by in his limo and is like, clean up the cereal from my driveway hot. It's like it's just cringe. Like it's like I love LeBron, but I mean he can be cringe that way. And so this is a marketing opportunity too. Like I'm sure Nike has been pushing this for years, being like, we can make a fortune. Just get him in the NBA. So I think there's some of that. But it was like kind of cool. Like it wasn't like I watched it and I watched the 3 minutes. I saw him get the rebound, but I hope he improves in the G League.
Peter, you all said it. It was about LeBron's longevity and how incredible it is that he's playing this long. And that was my takeaway. It was LeBron's night, a perfect bow on an incredible career. But I was also kind of left with, is this really the best start for Bronny? I mean, I don't know that it's totally fair to him for the start of his career to just be like, the bow, like the last bit of LeBron's career. I mean, as far as, forging your own identity, it seems like, like he shouldn't have been out there. Does he feel like he earned that? Probably not. I mean, He looked small. He looked lost. And it's because he's young. It's because he didn't, go through, whether it be the G League or even, more college basketball. Maybe it won't matter. I mean, maybe he'll still find a niche in the NBA, but I don't know that I would have wanted my story to start like that.
Yeah, I mean, you get the real sense, like, we know that college athletics aren't necessarily the greatest developer of talent for professional sports. We've sort of seen that in football. You can be a great college football player, but that doesn't necessarily mean it translates to the NFL. The same with college. There have been legion of excellent college players that have not really had their skills translate to the NBA very well. But there's still some sense that if there wasn't so much rush for Bronny to get to the NBA before LeBron retires, before LeBron is forced to sort of walk away from the game, because it is so much work for him to just sort of maintain his body for this 82 game season, that you almost feel like this sort of like, to sort of speak to Peter's point about sort of like, this wasn't the greatest start to Bronny's career, and it sort of stunts him because it's all in LeBron's shadow. This whole process has sort of stunted Bronny in that he was never able to develop into a legitimate NBA talent. If he'd had another year in college to maybe develop, because that first season at USC was marred by the heart concern, he missed a lot of games. He didn't really have a chance to like get a lot of game action, even at sort of a medium high level of Pac-12 basketball, and to just sort of jump straight into the NBA. Like, it was all of this rush has not just been sort of taken away from Bronny, but like legitimately sort of, I think in some ways, like a disservice to his development as a player, just sort of on his own.
Yeah, his NBA debut. Sorry, Jay.
No.
I mean, it was take your kid to work day. Like, it was, oh yay, Bronny, you're here. Now go back and get better and actually earn it. I don't think that's fair to him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. From a parent standpoint, what are we doing? This is all about me. I mean, what is LeBron getting out of that?
It's one more thing LeBron can say he did the best in the first.
Exactly, and I had to run over my oldest to do it.
Yeah. But it is LeBron James, and he does like to do stuff like this. I mean, it's true. I mean, he's an incredible ambassador for the game. He's maybe the greatest player to ever play. And so he gets to do things that like Dwayne Wade didn't get to do, or that Jason Tatum probably won't get to do. And so for LeBron, that was a moment about LeBron. It wasn't about Bronny. Peter, you're right. My thing with Bronny is, the reported measurement is that he's 6'4", but he's not 6'4". He's like 6'1.5", maybe 6'2". That's the biggest problem for Bronny when trying to be competitive in a league where like guards can be 6'8". You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't understand.
Yeah, like trying to match up against Luka is like a pretty tall ask.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys who are 6'2" in the world who are not in the NBA. There's less guys who are 6'10" who are not in the NBA. So, I mean, that to me is my biggest issue with Bronny is, unless he's going to be this like dagger, machine from three, I'm not sure how successful he can be in the NBA based on his skill set. But people say he's got good defense and can take it to the hoop and his feet's pretty good or whatever. So, we'll see. But he definitely needs time in the G League. And if he's not going to tear it up in the G League, like dropping 40 a night, then he probably won't make it out of the G League either. And then he'll just be, I don't know, LeBron's kid, which sucks for him. But there's worse fates in the world than being LeBron's kid, I guess.
Yeah, they're worse parents to have than LeBron James, probably, in terms of what Bronny's future looks like in terms of, a lot of things. In terms of opportunity, I guess. So, okay. So let's pivot. We're going to pivot to sort of our sweet spot, college football. We have a lot of top 25 matchups. First one that we want to go over today, it's one that I've actually been reading a lot about just because it's been getting a lot of press. And I'm sort of excited to actually like talk about it and to watch it later. Notre Dame Fighting Irish are 6-1. They have one pretty awful looking loss to Northern Illinois. But otherwise, if they run the table on the rest of their schedule, then all sins will be forgiven and they will probably make it to the college football playoff. Navy is 6-0. also looking to run the table and potentially clinch the American Athletic Conference, at least get a championship appearance is sort of like right on their sort of doorstep. And then potentially a postseason for Navy, which we never really, even with the expanded playoff, we never probably really conceived of in our wildest dreams that a service academy could be at this sort of elite level of college football. But here they are. And the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are a big favorite. They're a 13.5-point favorite. This is a neutral site game. They're playing it in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, where the Giants play. Who's excited for this game? Like, I'm excited. At this point, I just think, like, it would be awesome for Navy to win. I don't think they will, but, like, I think that it would be a pretty freaking cool story to see, like, Navy and Army roll into the Army-Navy game both undefeated with, like, real sort of playoff aspirations. Peter, I can see you grinning at my sort of just pie in the sky stuff. Tell me what's wrong with my sort of dreams.
No, I don't. I agree. I think that would be great for the sport, and kind of a case for this expanded playoff would be a team like Navy getting in. As far as the actual game to be played, I think Navy's offense presents schematic challenges. This is the first time Notre Dame is facing a team that rushes for almost 300 yards a game. Competition aside, they're going to be good at certain fundamental run plays and things like that they've done a million times. The part that I'm most keen on is, all right, we've seen the gap between the number 4 team and the number 1 team in the old college football format and so this is our first taste of what it looks like when college football blue blood runs into, one of the teams that is going to fall around 12. And I really just want to see if they can keep pace and make it interesting. Like, Notre Dame got shocked by Northern Illinois early in the year. Yeah, but this is one where, there's no trouble getting up. Like, people are expecting this to be a good game. There's hype around this game. And so is it going to be watchable, or is Navy just going to get steamrolled? I think they'll keep it closer, or at least around that spread. But yeah, it would be a bummer and kind of take some of the wind out of the new format sails, definitely, if it got ugly.
Yeah, I mean, their closest Navy's blown everybody out. We talked about this with Indiana earlier in the show in the season as well, when we're kind of like, oh, but they haven't beaten anybody. It's like, well, whoever they beat them by 150 points. So it's not as
you
though
only
they
beat the team in front of you.
Yeah, and they blew out Temple, they blew out UAB, which is Trent Dilfer's team. I think they blew out Air Force, they blew out Charlotte. Their game was relatively close against Memphis. But I'll be interested in a couple keys to this game. The first is, how will Notre Dame's defense, which is a good defense outside of that Northern Illinois game, has been really good. How do they, as Peter says, adjust to the schematic challenges of the triple option? That can give good teams fits because it's hard to replicate in practice. It's almost impossible. So I'll be looking for that. I'll also be looking for how much Notre Dame how quickly they can score, because that's the other thing is when you run the triple option, sometimes you have the ball for like a gazillion minutes. So the other team has to take advantage of their opportunities. That said, I like the over here. I mean, the over-under's at like 50, and all Navy does is score 40 to 50 points. I don't see why they wouldn't here, but it's a huge game. I mean, look, Notre Dame's not overlooking this. Like, Navy's ranked, and that's the other thing with this expanded playoff. Of course we want Navy to win. Could you imagine if Navy was like undefeated, if they were like the 10th seed in the country and they got to like play in the college football playoff? That would be ridiculous. Like, that's like the reason we've been wanting this 12-team playoff is because in November, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, we can talk about Vanderbilt or Navy as a possible option as like the 12th team. That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. It probably won't happen, but it's still fun to talk about.
Yeah, and like for me, like Navy represents like all that's fun about college football. Like, you watch their offense and they run like wing tee, some weird elements of the triple option still, even though they changed the rules regarding chop blocks. outside the tackle box. They run some like weird RPO concepts, spread option stuff. They do everything, and it just looks weird as hell. Like when you watch it on TV, and there are so many strange wrinkles that they've sort of introduced to sort of make themselves relevant. That would just never, like, that's just not stuff that people would ever do in the NFL. But it makes college fun because you just got to figure out a way to beat this team just once. And a lot of people have struggled to sort of contain this very bizarre sort of offensive attack of Navy.
Welcome to what football looked like when I was a kid, guys. The triple, you're like, who has the ball? When they run the triple option well. But we're not talking much about Navy's defense. We're talking about their ability to score. And I don't know. There's something that with this triple option look, there's something that just seems to go wrong. But the storyline is, I think it's delightful. I love the thought that Navy is got a great team or has a good team that could pull off a Notre Dame upset. I grew up Catholic, and I was forced to love Notre Dame. So now I want everybody to beat Notre Dame. So I don't know. Hopefully it's a good game. I love the as I get older, I have so much more respect for the military teams. Guys, it's super cool, and it would be a great story for sure. I love the underdog.
All right, let's move on to another game. Number 1 ranked Oregon. They are 7-0. They're coming off a monster win, one of the biggest wins probably in program history. Or I guess that's 2 weeks ago now, when they beat Ohio State. Then they took care of business against Purdue, obviously, last week. Now they're taking on Illinois. And Illinois has been a surprisingly sort of frisky team as well. They come into this ranked 20th in the country. They have 1 loss. They're 6-1 themselves. And Oregon is, predictably a pretty giant favorite, about 20 to 20 and a half points, sort of depending on where you're shopping for your line. How are we thinking about this game, guys? This is just sort of like the new Big Ten, right? Where it's like everyone's traveling all the time. Illinois is having to travel all the way to the West Coast.
I think it's a huge ask for Illinois. I was intrigued by what this line was going to look like, guys, when it came out. Oregon's coach, I got to tell you, when they won the game against Ohio State, he looked like somebody that had just been let out of prison after, over an overturned sentence or something. This guy looked absolutely possessed, and I loved it. I love to see his passion. Then he runs out and tells us that he threw the 12th man on the field on purpose. So we got a guy playing chess versus checkers with a lot of the other coaches. The only thing I look at here, guys, is common opponents. And when Illinois played Purdue, this thing was like, we can't keep track of the score. I think it was 54, and then Oregon runs out there and shuts Purdue out. Purdue doesn't score. And so my initial thought was, man, this line is too high. And every time I think that, the favorite covers by 30.
Yeah, I think this line is baiting us into taking Illinois. Here's a ranked team that's exciting, that is sort of good and has been sort of good for a couple years. And you're looking at like a 21.5 point spread, being like, you kidding me? You're telling me Illinois can't cover 21.5 points? But Oregon might be one of those teams like Georgia. And I'm just not sure that Illinois is as difficult a ask as Vanderbilt has proven to be this year, or some of these other teams. So I also kind of like Illinois to cover. It feels like a trap. Nate, maybe I'm wrong, but it's too many points for a ranked team to be an underdog in this scenario for me to think that there's not something screwy going on and they're not trying to bait me into taking Illinois. So I'm going to go with Oregon minus 21.5 in that one.
I mean, is no one scared that we're getting a new number 1 team every single week? It's our 4th number 1 in 4 weeks. I'm getting a little nervous. I didn't think Vanderbilt had a shot, but I mean, and Illinois is a feisty bunch. I don't know whether it's just what it means for a school to take down the number 1 team. If that's just I don't know, possessing opponent of the number one team so far this year. But I'd be a little bit nervous, especially Oregon having some emotional wins, maybe drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit right now. But 21.5 is disrespectful. They might not, Illinois probably won't win, but I think they definitely keep it closer than 21.5.
Yeah, I mean, for my money, I guess I keep just staring at the total and thinking 55 under is probably okay. Either Oregon just runs away and hides and they don't get to 55 points, or, it's a pretty close game. And if it's a close game, I doubt it's probably a shootout. Both of these defenses are pretty good at containing sort of the big play. They don't give up a lot of huge, like, explosive type plays. So I kind of lean under, but yeah, we got a lot of games to talk about. So let's just keep it moving. And this is okay. Now we're getting to the part of the show where we just talk about the SEC as it continues to sort of cannibalize itself. The SEC has grown and grown and grown. And at this point, maybe there's just too much talent in the SEC in some ways, because you're just going to lose games in the SEC. It doesn't matter who you are. And it's going to affect your college football playoff chances, even, if it shouldn't, just based on talent alone. 21 ranked Mizzou, they come in 6-1. They're playing 15 ranked Alabama and Tuscaloosa. Alabama's ranked 15th in the country, but they are 5-2, and they're coming off some, pretty stunning losses. At Tennessee hurt, Vanderbilt hurt. Trips to Tennessee have not been awesome this year for Alabama, I guess, is sort of the big scheduling takeaway. However, Alabama is still a 16-point favorite now that they're back at home in Tuscaloosa. Missouri has myriad of injuries. It looks like quarterback is questionable. It looks like their four safeties atop their depth chart are all questionable for this game. Missouri comes in really limping with a lot of injuries, and I suspect that's why the line is ticking so high towards Alabama, despite sort of Alabama stubbing their toe repeatedly in the last few weeks. What do we make of this game, guys?
Injuries or not, Alabama has looked bad in October, and I don't understand why that is just going to all of a sudden change with a Missouri team that, yes, they are injured, but have been tough to beat this year, although they did just slip by Vanderbilt as well. So I think they beat Vanderbilt. I know they beat Vanderbilt. I don't hate the spread for the underdog here, just because how can you trust Alabama after these two awful losses unless you're just convinced that Tennessee is really good and that Vanderbilt is underestimated? I mean, I just don't see it. I know they beat Georgia, but they looked pretty awful in the last two quarters of that game as well. So I'm okay taking the points here, but maybe it's a trap, but this is one that I'm buying into.
Yeah, I think the angle. Sorry,
go,
Jay.
Peter. Sorry.
I think the angle to look at is this is just a gut check for DeBoer and the new staff. Like, if you lose this game, maybe the floor falls out, and I mean, Alabama loses its prestige. We're already getting a little bit close there, and it's Nick Saban is gone, and it's just not the same team. You cannot let this slide continue at home, and you got a banged up Missouri team. I think you got to take advantage.
Guys, we get this all in St. Louis. We get all the Mizzou Tiger stuff. So I'm inundated with this stuff. Brady Cook, the difference between Brady Cook, who is the starting injured quarterback, and this kid we got from Notre Dame is light years, because we saw that last week in the Auburn game. Brady Cook went to the hospital, got some sort of magic little fix for his ankle. I'm sure it wasn't an injection or anything. And he wound up coming back and pulling the game out against Auburn. Every single game that Mizzou has played this year has been close. They've got it. They cannot figure out how to get the ball to Luther Burden, who is probably in the top 2 or 3 receivers in the country. He's dynamic. He can fly. He can catch. He can't get the ball. And my money would be throw this thing on Alabama. I don't think, unless somehow Eli Drinkwitz, who is the coach at Mizzou, has been deliberately holding back. I don't see it with him. I don't believe it with him. And I don't believe in Mizzou. And I want to believe in Mizzou. I don't think so. The other thing is, Do we give DeBoer any sort of leeway between making that transition from Washington? Now he's got to go in and be Lou Saban number 2. I mean, holy cow. Yes, he's got great players, but it's not plug and play. They're human beings. It's got to take this. The guy was a stud coach at Washington in a place that's not easy to get people to go up to UW. It's not. Now he's going to give. I think we got to give this guy a little room. I think he's going to be great. If you like money, I'd say don't bet Mizzou.
Yeah, I mean, and that was sort of like my last sort of thought, like as Peter was talking, was, Kalen DeBoer, this hasn't been an ideal start to the season. At some point, like at what point do Alabama, like if they go 8-4, do Alabama fans start kind of like looking towards the exit and being like, all right, maybe we whiffed on this? Like how long is Kalen DeBoer's leash at Alabama?
One season. One season.
And I think I think it is unfair, and I think you're right, Jay. Like it takes time, and it is a transition. But college football, if it lacks anything, it's patience, and people will jump ship. Players, fans, everyone.
Peter, you made a great point about number ones too. Sorry, Jack, but it's not about winning anymore, guys. It's style points. It's how are you winning? We won. But Nate, we didn't like the clothes you were wearing, so you lost, 2 spots in the rankings. The rankings are like musical chairs right now, boys. It's all over the place. It's style points are in there too.
Yeah,
I think Alabama can lose 3 games, and I think DeBoer keeps his job. I think they lose 4 games, and I'm not sure that he makes it to December or January as the head coach. And if they lose to Mizzou here, they have LSU next week, and LSU looks like a real team. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But there are situations in which they can lose 4. I mean, even Auburn, you can lose that game. Auburn can suck and still beat you in the Iron Bowl. So there's situations in which they lose 4 games in a year where they also missed Ole Miss, who, is a tough team in this SEC. So, we'll see. But I think it's one season. I mean, this is Alabama. They don't have the patience for any of this. What you do have to have patience for is when you walk in to a casino, one like Rosie's, the beautiful Rosie's.
What a transition, Jack. This is beautiful.
When you walk into that casino, you got to have a little bit of patience, because you can't just walk in and expect to just walk out in 10 minutes with a bucket of cash. But you can find a lot of ways to have a good time at Rosie's. You can win a lot of money there. If I was John, I'd complain about the coin issue. What are those slot machines in the gas stations that every time he does the Rosie's ad, he starts complaining about the gas station bill that didn't pass. Then I would shout out Youngkin and maybe talk about how the horses are over. But because I'm not him, I won't talk about any of that. But what I will say is, you can go to Rosie's Gaming Emporium and just really have an incredible time. And this is going to be in Virginia. You can go. They have so many locations that are just incredible: New Kent, Benton, Richmond, Hampton, Dumfries, Collinsville. They got Emporia. They also have a gaming resort called the Rose that's now open. And listen, I mean, John, I know he's not on the show right now, but he's a pretty big figure in the Rosie's Gaming Emporium universe. So maybe you go, you drop his name, maybe some good things will happen. Maybe not, maybe you'll be asked to leave. I don't know. Sometimes that also happens with John, but go to Rosie's Gaming Emporium and you'll really, it is one of the best places in Virginia if you're trying to have a ton of fun. And they have so many locations, and so go to rosiesgamingemporium.com. You can sign up for a rewards card and check out one of their incredible locations.
Jack, I think that read was just a little bit too coherent for my liking. If you could turn the hectic meter up next time, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could turn the chaos meter up a little bit when I do these live reads. One time, this person who worked for John, like a sales manager, she doesn't work for him anymore, but she texted me in the middle of the week when she was listening to him do a live read for a mutual sponsor, and she was just like, "Ah, he's so chaotic." And I was like, "Yeah, he can be that way." And she was like, "He is enthusiastic, though." I was like, "Yeah, he's got a lot of enthusiasm for his for everything in his life." But yeah, next time I'll try to be a little less coherent in my live read.
Yeah, well, the chaos makes you focus because you don't even know what he's talking about for half of it, so you're just locked in. It's like a whole thing.
But
All right.
he is excited about it.
Yes. Okay, so we got game of the week. We got like a little over 5 minutes to talk about this. Game of the week is number 8 ranked LSU coming into this 6-1, ripped off, a bunch of wins in a row. A&M's 14th. They are also 6-1 after coming in with a bunch of wins in a row. Texas A&M is -1 playing at Kyle Field in College Station, Texas. This line has been on the move. It seems like people have been increasingly sort of liking LSU's chances. When I was sort of researching this game yesterday, it was around 2.5 or 2, and now it's kind of down to 1. It seems like the whole world has been sort of piling onto LSU. What are our thoughts on this game? I mean, this is another one where the SEC is just sort of beating up on itself, and some team that probably doesn't deserve to be 6-2 will walk out of this game with 2 losses, despite having a really elite talent level.
I like LSU to cover at +1. I understand that the line's been moving. I also have a history of taking any game, taking the opposing side when Texas A&M is in the game. I just don't like Texas A&M as a football squad, just historically. So maybe take that with a little grain of salt. But I just feel like LSU has a couple more marquee wins, a little bit more impressive. I think they've looked really good offensively. I do like the over as well at 54.5. Both of these teams can score, but I know the line's been a little bit wonky. So even just from a betting standpoint, maybe I just like taking whoever's the dog, like wherever the line ends up settling. If it's LSU +1 or if it's Texas A&M +1, maybe I just take the dog in this one. But I kind of like LSU. I think that LSU's looked really sharp lately, and I'm not totally sure that I'm like convinced that Texas A&M's resounding win over Mississippi State is one that gives me a ton of confidence. But they do have one big win. I forgot because I know I took whoever I took.
They
them
beat
against
the
someone.
brakes off Missouri a few
Yeah,
weeks.
that's right, Mizzou. That was their big one. So I don't know. I mean, none of these teams have played like Texas, I don't think, or Alabama. So it's hard to know exactly how good they are. But I mean, Ole Miss is good. LSU beat Ole Miss, so I guess I'll take LSU.
Peter.
Yeah, it's another year of Brian Kelly LSU team starting a little bit slow and then finding their form later. Those LSU receivers are what you would expect. Nussmeier's finding his groove a little bit, and I just think, yeah, I mean they've been the ascending team, and I like them in this one for sure.
Jay, what are you looking at here?
I'm wondering if Brian Kelly's going to do his Southern accent at any part in this game today. I try to find something fun. I don't have a clue who to pick in this game. I want to pick LSU only because I am a little more familiar with them. I don't know much about A&M here, so I would take the points. I don't have fade me on this because I have no idea who to pick.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of lean towards LSU just as a more trustworthy team, just because I'm not positive that A&M's quarterback Connor Wegman is like playing his best football right now. He didn't look awesome against Mississippi State, and Mississippi State is not really a powerhouse team. I sort of prefer to take the quarterback that I think is playing a little bit better if it's just a coin flip, which it basically is. So I'd rather sort of lean towards a Nussmeier like sort of led offense versus Wegman, but I don't know. I mean, I think that it's really sort of a tough call and really sort of a judgment call. I mean, both of these teams are excellent. There are a lot of things to like about both of these teams. There are a lot to like about both of these defenses. Offensive line play, which we've seen a lot of bad offensive line play recently. So I lean LSU, but I don't love it, especially after all the value got banged out of it in the last few days, coming from 3 down to 1. All right, we're looking to grow our socials. Please go ahead and follow us at Godzilla Wins Big on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. If you're probably watching us on Getter, Follow us on Getter if you haven't followed us already. We're looking to grow all of those. So please go ahead and give us a follow. It helps us get some traction. And you can get our Best Bets segment, which we'll be recording right after the show with all of our sort of circle bomb lock plays for the weekend. Try and make a little money for you as well. We are going to take a quick little reset, take a minute to refresh our coffees, warm up everything, stand up, stretch our legs, and we will be back at the top of the hour after that little 1 minute break to talk a little NFL. We got a loaded NFL slate. We got some big topics coming up, some quarterbacks, coming back, entering for the first time in a while. And it's going to be an exciting second hour. See you then.
To Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Welcome back to hour 2 of the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show, episode 126. We are phasing out of the college football talk and phasing into the NFL talk, our bread and butter, what we started the show doing, and we are back to sort of discuss Thursday Night Football. We're going to discuss Tua coming back from his scary concussion injury. We're going to talk about the ageless and inimitable Jameis Winston becoming the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. We'll be breaking down all the games as we usually do. We may even be joined by John Fredericks at some point later in the show when he just barges in and starts talking over all of us. You'll know it when he's here. Trust me. As I was in the first hour, joined again for the second hour by Peter Kriebel. Go ahead and check him out on Pete Takes on TikTok, which is just growing like wildfire. Jay Delsing, you can catch him again if you just love Jay Delsing. You love sports. You love hearing thoughtful sort of commentary, thoughtful interviews. Check out Jay Delsing for Golf with Jay Delsing right after this show. Jack Fredericks, as always. And there is John Fredericks, a leader of Godzilla Wins. Welcome, John.
It's a movement.
It's a movement. It's a movement. All right. We are going to give out some gambling picks here in a little bit, but it's for entertainment purposes only. And if you have a gambling problem, I would urge you to call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 800-426-2537. If you're in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming, call 1-800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. If you're in Massachusetts, call 877-G-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY if you're in New York. It's 1-800-NEXT-STEP if you're in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Kansas or New Hampshire, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit opgr.org if you're in Oregon. All right, so we're starting off the second part of our show, second hour. We usually like to start with a little recap, what some people liked, what some people didn't like. And the Rams-Vikings game was not my favorite Thursday night football game. But a lot of Thursday night football games are not my favorite football games. They're not ones that I have circled on the schedule necessarily always. But it was kind of exciting. I mean, Sean McVay does what he does, which is put up a hell of a game plan against the number one defensive DVOA team in the league. They got some starters back, which is critical. They got Puka back. They got Cooper Kupp back. And the offense looked pretty good. And it was just another one of those moments where Sean McVay just sort of just came out and showed us why he's such an excellent coach. Am I wrong?
No,
Peter?
not at all. Not at all. I mean, the Rams as a whole are looking like the Rams of last year. And a lot of it is just getting healthy. Kupp and Nakua and Stafford and Williams, with those five or those four, I mean, you're going to be in every game, and that's going to make for some dynamic offense. And that's 2 weeks in a row now where this Vikings defense is looking a little bit pedestrian. And, on the other side of things, Darnold has a chance to win it at the end of the game. And it's the other strength of the Rams defense, and that's their defensive line that closes it out. Obviously, that face mask penalty that ended up being kind of the talk of the game. But yeah, the Rams have a winning formula, and they're a gritty team that's well coached. And just like last year, they could position themselves to go on a run in a very weak NFC West.
Yeah, I mean, this is so Sean. This is like such classic Sean McVay nonsense, right? Like the Rams suck, and then all of a sudden they beat the Vikings, and then they like rip off 4 wins, and then they're like back to 500, and now they're in the playoff hunt. And it's just like, I mean, I understand it's the injuries and everything else, but Sean McVay is legitimately maybe just the best coach with just doing so little or so much with so little, that I was not shocked that this happened, or that the Rams looked a little bit sharper. Maybe we're starting to see a ceiling for Sam Darnold. Probably not. I think the Vikings will be fine. I think Sam Darnold is fine. But like this is like what Sean McVay does. He does this all the time. It's so aggravating to have to handicap Rams games because you never know what's going to happen, because he's just a better coach than almost anyone taking the field except maybe Andy Reid. That'd probably be the only coach I think that McVay is. I would put him below. Otherwise, I'd rather have McVay.
He's just a guy that throws all the wrinkles at you sometimes. And yeah, to sort of speak to your point about like this being sort of like wide open, the NFC West right now, Seattle leads. They're 4-3, but they lose a tiebreaker against San Francisco right now because they have a head-to-head loss against them. Cardinals 3-4, Rams 3-4, San Francisco 49ers 3-4. I mean, it's just a wide open race in terms of division right now. I mean, and this was not the division that we looked at, I think, to start the season and thought anybody could win this. But here we are, 8 weeks in, or 7 weeks in, and playing week 8, mostly tomorrow. And it really does kind of look like anybody maybe could emerge, as unusual as that sort of is. Jay, you're muted. I don't know. Okay. Jay, you just tell me when you're unmuted. You just talk over me.
Better.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
Guys, hard to win games in the NFL. It's hard to win games in the NFL. And when you get 2 receivers back and you got a guy like Stafford that just wants to throw on every down, and this might be the toughest quarterback in the NFL, pound for pound, it's that line just sucks me in every single time. I'm like, I got the Vikings should be about a 5-point favorite. I look at 2.5. I'm like, this is going to be easy. And of course, I'm such a sucker fish when it comes to that. But I thought it was a good game. I don't understand to what Peter's point was about the face mask. There's one ball. You got all these guys going, but there's one guy that has the ball, and he gets grabbed by the face and thrown into the end zone, and nobody sees it. I just some of the officiating in the NFL this year, guys, has been so blatantly bad. That call. I look at some of the games where the Kansas City Chiefs, it's like I don't know if maybe the NFL just wants the Chiefs to be this dominant team and looks the other way, but so many calls in their secondary where these guys are getting mugged, and then the ball hits the receiver in the shoulder. Like, no call. Oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes wins, and off we go. It's kind of maddening. I don't get it, but there's something there.
Peter, I'm wondering, and Nate, sorry to jump in here, but I just kind of want to ask Peter this question. Peter, maybe maybe you don't. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but you watch a lot of film. You know more about schematics than anyone else here on the show. What is it about McVay's game plans, his scheme, that make him so difficult just week in and week out to beat? I mean, we can talk very vaguely about adjustments or schematics, but you're the only one who really understands this stuff in a way that is a little bit more nuanced. Is there something that Sean McVay is doing week in and week out that makes this such a difficult matchup for other coaches?
I mean, the Rams are kind of a team that does what they do and does it really well. We were talking about Navy, right? Like the Rams have a clear offensive identity, and it's 11 personnel, duo in the run game, motion on just about every snap, and asking a lot of his receivers. And so that in and of itself puts defenses in binds. Where he is in that elite class of play callers is like he understands the rules of defenses and understands how to break them. So you see a lot, like you see more wide open receivers in McVay and Shanahan led offenses than anyone else. And the other thing is specific to this game and why he's so good is like success on tape is a dangerous thing in the NFL, and the Vikings have had a lot of success early, and Detroit just kind of exposed them some of these like blitz looks with a lot of it was dagger as far as like a specific passing concept, but other more general ways to stress some of what the Vikings like to do. And McVay's the type of guy where if he sees that, his offense is so sound and he has trust in Stafford more than he ever did with Goff, where they can implement some of that stuff midweek. And they know because they've played a lot of ball and their receivers are as smart as can be. And so it's just like a lot of, it's not like the craziest. I wouldn't even know. It's just pairing plays together really well. Like all the runs look like passes, all the passes look like runs. You don't know what's going to happen, and so it's easy to tweak certain things, and it's really hard to defend.
All right, so that was great analysis, Peter. Let's talk a little bit. John, are you back? Do you have any thoughts on
I'm
this
back.
Thursday night game? Okay.
Listen, here's the thing about this game Thursday night, and I love our Thursday night recaps because it's really the only game that we can go in depth on because it just happened a couple days ago. And I didn't pick the game on Daily Picks. I've been off the grid, obviously, with this bus tour. I'm in New York City, obviously, today for the Madison Square Garden rally. But just the bottom line, this thing, all the Viking fans, all these people are whining about this missed face mask call, which was really blatant. And I agree with Jay, the officiating this season has been dreadful. This whole pass interference thing, it is just subjective. I mean, they'll call one, they'll not call the other. I mean, if you're betting on these games or you have a favorite team, I mean, it's just maddening, some of these calls. That call was missed. Now, Stafford threw, 4 touchdown passes, and he carved up the Vikings defense like, a hot knife through hot butter. I mean, it was a joke. And then they're whining because, they would have had a first and 10 at the 20, down 8 with 90 seconds to go. Okay, that should have been the call, but at the end of the day, the Rams beat them, and it was not even as close as the score. And I think they're a better team than meets the eye, and I don't think the Vikings are what we thought they were to be, the opposite of Dennis Green. But the officiating, I mean, Jay, they got to do something here because, I mean, every time there's a pass down the field, you have no idea if a flag is coming out. You have no idea why it came out. And then they'll call PI on Team A, and then you get the exact same play, the second possession with the other team, with almost the exact thing happen, there's no flag. So it's become too referee-oriented and too subjective. I don't know how they fix it, but it's becoming a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a conversation probably to be had. At some point in the future, I think it would probably be a fun topic for like summer, which is like a lot of leagues have struggled with officiating recently. The NFL is not alone. We saw the WNBA finals, especially Game 7, sort of marred by pretty poor officiating, particularly at the end of the game that sort of decided the game. And I think that there's probably a real conversation to be had, on this show that would be fun about, at what point do these leagues stop sort of cheaping out on referees and actually make them sort of like full-time employees of the organization and like work with them sort of year round and, like actually take care of some of these issues that these guys just like don't get like a chance to because they work 16 weeks a year and then they go back to their other day job doing whatever else they do. You know, a lot of these guys have like sort of professional careers, and this is sort of like their side job. And it's like, what level of sort of like, what level do you expect from people where this is basically just like their sort of side hustle, I guess, you know, and not necessarily like their full-time sort of career. Okay. We have some sort of interesting quarterback news. Miami Dolphins welcome back Tua Tagovailoa to the lineup. He's coming back after you know, his third diagnosed concussion in his young NFL career. It was another scary one. He had a press conference earlier this week that didn't win over a lot of fans, nor necessarily convince a lot of people of his future sort of safety. I think would be sort of the major takeaway from that. He was fairly obstinate in some responses. People asked him about whether or not he would, you know, wear a Guardian cap moving forward, and the answer was a pretty curt no. Personal preference, never going to wear it. Peter, what do we make of like Tua and his sort of just like ride or die attitude towards the game of football, and his, you know, I mean, I can understand the frustration in terms of the media asking him questions. You know, it's something that he's spent a lot of time thinking over for the last few weeks. And I can understand being frustrated at questions by people that don't know you, that don't know your circumstances, that don't understand sort of, you know, all that you've put into the game. But also there's this element of like these concussions, every concussion he's had has been horrific looking. It's looked potentially career ending, and he's just had his third one. Like, what do we make of Tua coming back?
Yeah, I mean, it's his decision ultimately. The part that was weird to me, and you hit all of it, is he was irritable in that press conference. It was like, I mean, he knew they were coming. All those questions, he had to know all those questions were coming, and yet he seemed so just like irritable the whole time. Like every single question got a quick answer, and this tone of like just, I don't know, surprised that he was having to answer them, which of course, like these reporters, even the reporters are concerned about you. Your family's concerned about you. And I think a more thoughtful answer on a lot of that stuff would have been more convincing. But he said, you know, none of the discussion that he had with his friends and family swayed him really. So fine, that's your decision. But it just came across as, I don't know. It didn't make him look great. I'll say that.
Jay, I know you probably have a unique perspective on this because your daughter, who is dealing with a pretty scary concussion herself recently. Jay, I mean, what, like, if Tua is your kid, what are you thinking?
Oh man, I'm gonna grab on with both hands, and he's not gonna play. I mean, my daughter is having trouble. She can't sit through a full class yet. Light is still giving her headaches. There's all sorts of things. My nephew Taylor Twillman played in the MLS Major League Soccer and concussions ended his career. So it's a hot button topic for our family. But to Peter and your point with this press conference, I'm like, what are we missing here? It almost made me feel like he's still dealing with some brain fog or something, because come on, man. I mean, I get it. We are talking about boatloads of money and also a young man that still feels relatively invincible, but you're not going to wear the Guardian cap. You're not going to take any extra precautions to try to safeguard another one of these. I mean, I don't know the guy, and if he gets another concussion, I'm looking away, guys. The last one did not look that bad compared to some of what we see, but then you watch his pot. I was like, it's like the car crash, you know, you can't turn away from. And I'm concerned for a guy I don't even know, because in a violent game like this, they're tough to avoid. It's a weird decision. I get it. It's his decision. If it's my kid, John, you'll probably say the same thing. I'm grabbing him by both hands, and he's not getting out of the house.
I agree with Jay 100%. And Jay, you know, I'm glad Nate brought this up, because when this segment came up, the first thing I thought about was your daughter. I mean, I'm a father, and my kids are like the center of my life, all of them. Sometimes I drive Jack bananas because I call him five times a week to find out what's going on. So, but if that was Jack, and I know he's off screen right now, but if that was my son Jack, I'd be freaked. I'd be like, what are you doing here? I mean, you've got a life ahead of you. You've got, you got a family to raise. I mean, you've got all the fulfillments that life can bring you in this great country. And one more of these bad hits, man, and you don't know if you're going to be able to enjoy it. You don't know if you're going to be able to focus on a baseball game or read a book or whatever's going on. And then it could end your life early. You got enough money, invest it, go get a job, retire. I mean, I get the pizzazz, but as a father, Jay, I mean, I don't want anything to do with it. And I think, Peter, you brought a great point out, Peter, very insightful. He was very irritable during that interview, which I watched. And the first thing I thought is, his parents are on his ass to get out of this game. And that's why he's irritable. I mean, his family is telling him to get out. And you know how family pressure can be, Peter. You're going to find as you get older, they just, it never stops. And so I'm sure he had a lot of pressure on by his dad and his mom and other family members to, pick safety over, the pizzazz of being a football and the money and everything else. Money is no good if you're dead. Money is no good if you can't enjoy it, Jay. It's no good. It doesn't matter if you can't live your life. So if that was Jack, I'd be like, son, you got to get out. If this happened to Jack's little brother Joe, I'd be like, hey, it's just time to stop this because you got to enjoy your life. So I don't know. It's just, and now every time he gets to football, and somebody's pass rushing him, your heart goes in your mouth because it could be fatal. I mean, that's no way to play the game. So I wish he retired, but I hope he's okay.
Yeah, and I mean,
I will say that one thing about one thing we know about early CTE exposure. We know that if you have one concussion, then you're more likely to have multiple. So that's one of the problems that we see with stuff like this. We also know that people who have early CTE or have experienced multiple concussions tend to have difficulty regulating their emotions. It affects the part of the brain where you can sort of slow the game down and regulate your emotions in a way that most people are used to doing. And so, it could just be that we're already seeing some signs of him, having some of these effects. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, this is pretty. It's pretty hard to watch. I think it turns a lot of people off football, and I wouldn't be opposed to some sort of rule that says, hey, after 3 diagnosed concussions over a, make a time period, 24 months, whatever, you are barred from the game for safety reasons. I mean, the NFL would never do that, but God, I think I would breathe a little easier if they would.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess to sort of extend that point a little bit, and it was just sort of my last thought on this topic as we sort of just wear it out was, so what happens for concussion number 4 when it happens? If it happens this week, if it happens next week, if it happens next season, but my God, if it happens soon again, then what happens? Or, I think the worst case scenario isn't even that he gets a clear concussion. It's that he takes a really hard hit that looks like it might be a concussion. And he's so obstinate and he's dealt with so much criticism from the media and he feels so backed into a corner that instead of acknowledging his concussion symptoms, he tries to play through it and can cause some real serious damage at that point. We saw him do it last season or 2 seasons ago. We saw him do that in a game where he sort of took a pretty hard hit and it looked a lot like a concussion. He went into the tent for a minute. He came back out and then he played horribly, like somebody that could not process things at all. And I think that's probably the worst case scenario, not because he's playing badly, but just because the level of trauma that your brain can experience after it's already had a concussion and continuing to get pounded on can just be so much worse. And I just worry that his attitude makes it so much more likely that he won't acknowledge sort of a fringy concussion diagnosis moving forward because he's dealt with so much pushback already. All right. The second thing that we were going to talk about for quarterbacks, Jameis Winston is now the new starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. It looks like the Cleveland Browns have finally hit bottom. Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles on Sunday. There were cheers in the stands pretty distastefully to get him off the field. It seemed like from a just pure coaching perspective, it probably was something that they needed to get Deshaun Watson off the field and at least try something else for a little while anyways. He'd been playing like, if he wasn't the worst quarterback in the league, he was definitely in the conversation. Their offense has been miles behind basically any offense in the last few years in terms of like, most of the sort of advanced stats that we use to sort of track that sort of thing. Dorian Thompson-Robinson came out there and was not great either. He also was injured. And that brings up Jameis Winston, who has just been hanging around, waiting for an opportunity with an NFL team. In much the same way, the thing that I keep thinking about is Baker's 29 and has really just sort of had his first, real sustained success in the NFL in his career. Jameis is 30 and hasn't really experienced a ton of success in the NFL, despite having sort of elite tools. Geno Smith is 34 and didn't really experience real success in the NFL until he was 31, 32 a couple of years ago. 2022 was kind of his breakout season for the Seahawks. So is Jameis like a guy that maybe finally has it figured out? Like, could he just come and just do it? John, I'll give you the first word since your audio is kind of spotty, and then we'll go around the horn with everybody else.
No. I mean, Cleveland continues to be the biggest dumpster fire clown show this side of the Tennessee Titans. I mean, now they're turning to somebody who's failed in various organizations that had, such high hopes coming out of Florida State. I just don't see this. But it's the end of the Deshaun Watson. I don't know what you want to call it, an era, whatever it was. He's done. But Cleveland has no choice. I mean, this is a snake bit franchise. I know Peter's happy about it, but this is just, every season you get the Browns hype, right? I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Every season, it's finally going to be the Browns. They got Watson. They got this. They got this. They got that. It was finally going to be their season. You had Freddie Kitchens in there, that was a complete disaster. The guy couldn't coach, worse than Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. They're horrible. So it just goes on. And now to think that all of a sudden Jameis Winston is going to be your answer. Look, I would rather be the Tennessee Titans because we suck and we know it. We have no quarterback. We know it. We're trying to lose 15 games to get a good draft pick. We know it. Cleveland actually thinks they're a good football team. And so it's not fair to the fans. And this guy is not the answer. And I don't know, maybe the Ravens have a letdown this week because, they're playing so good. But they're going to, they should stop this team, cover. Right now, the Ravens, you got to ask yourself, who's going to beat them right now? The way they're playing, the way Derrick Henry's playing, who's going to beat them? Certainly not the Browns.
Yeah. Peter, what's our expectation level for the Browns? Privately with Jack, I've been how hilarious would it be if the Browns just ripped off 4 wins in a row with Jameis?
Yeah.
It's not likely given sort of the state of their offense, but the bottom can't be any lower, right?
Right. And it was unlikely that Joe Flacco would go on that run last year. You have some infrastructure in place to make you think that it could work. You lose Amari Cooper, which I think is kind of the big decider in this and why it won't be a Flacco-ish return. You do have Nick Chubb coming back. You have an O-line that's proven they can run the ball and be pretty good in the past. A decent receiving core. Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, and Jerry Jeudy isn't really exciting, and it's definitely a step back from last year. And then it's the defense, and that's the hope. Now, right now, they're squarely in the middle of the NFL in terms of points per game and EPA. So, but how much of that is just having an incompetent offense? There is a possibility that Watson just being out of the picture is kind of a sigh of relief for the organization. DTR was the backup last week. Jameis Winston was third string. Now, you tell me why that is. That's because they were protecting Deshaun Watson. They don't want the fans going, Jameis, like they have had to protect him at every turn. It's been weird. It's been uncomfortable. And now maybe it's just, you know what? Go out there and play football. Is Jameis going to be the type of quarterback that pushes the ball downfield? Yes. But will he take care of the football? That's the question.
No.
And I don't think that he's going to play the complementary football necessary to go on the run that, say, Flacco did. And it's definitely not going to be against the Ravens.
Jay?
I agree. I agree with John and what Peter said. And the fact that he still even has a uniform in the NFL is kind of remarkable. At his very best, he never took care of the football. At his very best, when he was a younger man, I don't see it. One other thing I want to ask you guys, and John, we're older. I watched football for 30 years and never saw one guy tear an ACL. What in the hell is going on? I mean, the Achilles. What is going on? What is happening? Is it the way they're training? Is it diet? Peter, you might know. I know I'm an old guy. What is going on with people tearing Achilles tendons? It used to be an incredibly uncommon injury, and now you're turning around and watching it all the time.
Yeah, Jay, it just comes down to healthy cell. There's not enough healthy cell in these locker rooms. These guys, they're falling apart. It's not good. It's really bad.
Joint pain and mobility. You can get I'm spacing on the sleep one for some reason. All sorts of incredible products. REM sleep. That's right. REM sleep. All sorts of incredible products there with Healthy Cell. We encourage everyone in the NFL to take advantage of the promo code Godzilla and get 20% off that promo code right there. All you got to do is go to healthycell.com. Joint health and mobility, little REM sleep. I mean, you can get you can get pretty much fixed up anything that you need. Healthy Cell can solve your problems. Can't solve all your problems, doesn't solve my existential sort of angst and just a daily basis that I've had since I was 7. They don't have existential away yet in Healthy Cell, but if they do, I'll be the first.
But your body will feel better while you deal with this.
Yeah. I'm definitely more mobile, a little bit more well-oiled while I deal with the crushing anxiety that comes with lived existence. So just go to healthycell.com. Promo code Godzilla, 20% off all of your favorite products.
All right. Let's get to some games. We got a lot of games on the run sheet here. This is a really natural segue. Jack did a really nice job doing the run sheet where we can just go straight from Jameis and sort of discussing just sort of broadly what Jameis is sort of maybe going to bring to this. And then sort of, how it segues into this game, which is Baltimore travels to Cleveland this week. Baltimore is an 8.5-point road favorite. They have looked incredible. They have looked like probably the best team in the NFL so far in terms of just completeness. It's bizarre to say that Derrick Henry is on pace to break the all-time rushing record single season and take down Earl Dickerson's record that has been around for an extremely long time. And I think that in the modern NFL, we thought that maybe that record would never be broken. But Derrick Henry is here, and he is on pace to run for 2,120 yards for the season. As nuts as that is, at essentially the halfway point. Welcome, Mitch. How are we thinking about this game? I mean, there's part of me that thinks that protecting the football and being careful is a learned NFL skill for quarterbacks. Like I said, we saw it with Geno. We've seen it with Baker. We've seen it with a few other quarterbacks that have sort of figured it out later in their career not to be quite as reckless with the football. But I guess our sort of I'll just lead with Peter here because these are his teams and this is his wheelhouse. But what's our fundamental sort of handicap for this game? Like, how are you looking at it? What are you expecting?
Yeah, the Ravens are in that mode where there's only one team in the league that can beat them, and they're quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes. The scariest part of all of this is that the defense is underperforming right now, just as far as the talent. There's room to improve on that side of things. But this offense is as good. It's better than any I've seen in the Lamar Jackson era, far and away. His processing, his accuracy. Lamar Jackson is not missing throws. And even the deep shot, like my biggest complaint about him, right? He's always been a very good intermediate passer, but the deep shots kind of eluded him in his career. He connects with Rashad Bateman on that double move on Monday night. You have Derrick Henry yards at least once every single game. And then it's all these other role players who are really awesome in space, whether it's Zay Flowers or Isaiah Likely. Oh, and by the way, Mark Andrews, you have to deal with him. The O-line has put it together. I know I came on this show early in the year just complaining about the O-line play, but the Ravens churn out interior guards like nobody's business, and they've done it again this year. All those guys will go get paid in free agency. This team, this is the year. If it doesn't happen this year,
there he is.
Happening. It's just not happening because it's the most balanced, talented, well-coordinated offense I've ever seen. It used to be Joe Flacco to Marlon Brown and Mike Wallace, and then Justin Tucker were praying he hits the 50-yarder. That's what this offense used to be. I am so spoiled, but it has to be this year. I just hope they can stay healthy, and it's hard to maintain this level of success for so long. I'm almost annoyed or concerned, I should say, that they're finding it so early in the year.
I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for the Peter optimism to just take hold here, and it finally has. Because I've seen him sort of grimace when I've been like, Baltimore looks pretty good. I think they're probably a top 3 team. And I've seen him grimace up until this week, and he's finally willing to acknowledge that they have his hopes up. Mitch, hop in here and tell us, is the bottom, have we reached bottom for Cleveland, and this is a good time to buy them? I think that I like Cleveland here, but I know that I'm probably on an island.
I mean, I feel like the spread would be probably 14 points if it wasn't an AFC North team. With the Ravens, I think Peter's right, though. I mean, they are bar none the best team in football and the best team that I've seen put together since Patrick Holmes when the offense was flying. But the pressure of it having to be this year, that could crumble your team in a heartbeat, because then there's no glory in winning the AFC North. If you do, there's no glory in a divisional playoff game. That's some pressure. That's a lot of pressure. And I think that's the only thing that can really bring them down, that they don't win a Super Bowl. But it's a bad time for the Browns to have to face them and Jameis Winston. But, last time Jameis Winston started, it was over 5,000 yards and maybe like 33 touchdowns and 31 interceptions. But, I can't wait to see him sling it. But I think the Ravens pull away big here.
What was fascinating? When we had week 3, if you go back in this tape and you go back to the archives and you look at week 3, Baltimore was 0-2. And we were sitting around here saying, well, could this team start 0-3? And that could be the end of it. And Mitch Rogers right here said, yeah, I'm rooting for 0-3. That's going to be the end of them. Now, here they are, the best team in the NFL. So a lot happened. You just can't gauge. It tells you really can't gauge these early games. But 8.5, I mean, look, I don't like betting a team that I don't think can win. I've always told you that. There's no way the Browns are going to win this game. They're terrible. And do we see some kind of a letdown coming for Baltimore? Sure, that's the way the NFL is. You can't sustain this week in and week out, except if you're Kansas City. So there could be a little letdown effect here, but I'm going to lay the 8.5 and hope they cover it. I just don't see Cleveland with Jameis and Winston covering this team, and that there's something wrong with. I said this earlier. There's something wrong with this Browns franchise. I don't know what it is. Somewhere in there's some kind of rot that you get. It's like a house, and you keep cleaning the termites out, and floors keep getting soft, and you can't really figure it out. There's some kind of rot in that foundation that maybe they just need to bomb the thing like you do with the insects, right? You bring in the bomb, you just bomb it, right? And close the house and bomb it. Something's wrong with that franchise.
Ravens minus 8.5.
No, Jay, final word.
Cleveland figures out a way to lose all the time. I do like their defense. Jameis Winston coming off the street, and I'm going to lay the 8.5.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I am on an island here. Okay. Let's get to, gosh, I really wanted to just kind of skip over a couple games to get to this, but it's not quite as exciting anymore. Just because I really wanted to discuss Chicago and Washington, number 1 and 2 picks, how exciting it would be. But it looks like Jaden Daniels is going to be out, which really sort of takes a lot of the luster off of this game in terms of like, making it a fun, watchable game. Marcus Mariota is wonderful, but he is no Jaden Daniels. That is for sure. So in the interest of time, let's take it back. I'm wearing the hat, so we may as well talk about it. Let's talk a little Texans. Texans are, a team that has not looked great. They've looked okay at times. They are 5-2, which is probably a better record than they've played. They have not played awesome on offense, given all of the sort of tools, given the sort of leap that we thought we'd get from CJ Stroud. Looks like the Colts have Anthony Richardson back. This is a big AFC South matchup. We can expect D'Amico Ryans to have a solid defensive game plan to take on AR-15 for the Colts. Houston's a 5-point favorite at home. Peter?
5.
What?
Texas -5. That's all I have to say about this game. Indianapolis is just not that good. Texas is underperformed, or the Texans, whatever you want to call them. They're not the Oilers. They've underperformed, but I think they get home. They win this game handily.
All right. So John taking a favorite, surprise to nobody. Peter, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I think peak Texans optimism came in week 1 after they beat the Colts. It was probably also the peak optimism for the Colts. I am concerned about CJ Stroud, or the O-line in front of CJ Stroud, as I mentioned a few weeks ago. It's not gotten better. The Colts have a decent defensive line, and it's a divisional game that always presents weirdness. The Colts were in that game. They felt like maybe they should have won it, but I have a hard time trusting Anthony Richardson ever. I don't know that there is, more of a foil to his game than CJ Stroud, where CJ Stroud, everything is perfect. It's the same throwing motion every single time. It might not be, the most ridiculous 80-yard throw you've ever seen in your life, but it's awesome touch throws, squeezing it in between defenders. It's hard, right? It's hard because the Colts have won 4 of the last 5. Not great teams that they've beaten, but I got to think that, Shane Steichen, who's a really good coordinator, is maybe holding back a little bit or have something ready because they do play the Texans well. That said, I think the Texans at home, where they have played better, get it done.
Jay?
I was incredibly looking forward to watching CJ Stroud. I love the way last year ended, and I think we kind of maybe pushed him up a little, or at least I may have pushed him up a little higher than I should have. I like what Peter said. I'm not convinced about their O-line. I'm taking the dog here. I like the 5.
Mitch, what are your thoughts?
I like the fact that Joe Mixon seems to be back in form and over 150 yards last week. I think that will be the difference maker. But then Jonathan Taylor's back as well, but I don't think he'll be up to form yet to really carry Indianapolis. I'm going to go with the Texans at home -5 because of the run game.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I mean, I sort of suspect the Texans find a way. I mean, to sort of speak to Peter's point, Anthony Richardson is so boom or bust. Each time he drops back, it seems like it's 50-50 whether or not he's just going to launch a cannon to a defensive back, or it's just going to be like the most insane touchdown pass you've ever seen. There's not a lot of sort of like mid and short range stuff that he does. It's just sort of like he's like the ultimate boomer bust, and it's not just like boomer bust for a game. It's like boomer bust on like a play-to-play or series-by-series basis, which can be sort of maddening from a handicapping perspective, just because there's so much randomness that comes with Anthony Richardson's game. Jonathan Taylor does come back to speak to Mitch's point. However, the Texans have the second best by the metrics run defense in the league. So it's not going to be the easiest day for Jonathan Taylor, despite his elite level of talent. I think to probably make a lot of headway against this Texans team. So I think that it'll probably be a little bit of a sloggier game in terms of scoring, just because Houston's been so inconsistent. Anthony Richardson is just like wildly inconsistent. I sort of lean towards just like taking under 46.5 and just sort of enjoying just sort of a weird game. But yeah, that's sort of where my head is at with this game that I would love to talk about. Yeah.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah,
just
of
very
course.
quickly. If you're watching on the live stream, I'm getting absolutely cooked by the Arizona sun here. It came up about 20 minutes ago, and I can barely see anyone in the stream here. I know you can see it on my face. What I have been thinking just in terms of in the last 10 minutes is that I probably need to replenish my collagen supply because the sun is just absolutely crushing my skin right here. Dad, what can I do to get a little bit more collagen in my diet?
Well, you got to get it now. All you got to do is go to getnativepath.com/Godzilla. It's easy as that. Getnativepath.com/Godzilla. You can get collagen for as low as $21. Jay takes it. I take it. Ann takes it. Jack, Claire, everybody in my family. Joe doesn't need it. He's 19 or 20 now, right? The time flies, right? Joe's 20. Peter doesn't need it. He's 19. But you get a little bit older, and just in fact, my coffee right here, we travel with it. Ann and I in New York, Mom and I in New York today. She packed her collagen. We put our 2 scoops in the coffee right here, coffee cup at the hotel, wherever we are in Manhattan. And you're just going to feel better because your body needs that. But we get the best deal on it right now. Everybody that we've turned on to this, including Ann turning me onto it, it's been a godsend. Jack, you really need this. You need to replenish it. Let's go to getnativepath.com/Godzilla. Get your collagen for as low as $21 for one of these. They last a month. So you get 6 of these. It's 6 months. It's the price point for what you get is unbelievable. Getnativepath.com/Godzilla. You're good to go. You're going to feel better in 2 weeks, and you're going to thank us later because it's great stuff. The body needs it. So get it today.
All right. Go ahead and get your healthy native path. Okay. Let's talk. We're going to skip ahead a little bit more just because we're going to talk about games that are near and dear to my heart because I'm the host and I get to choose which games we talk about. I want to talk about Buffalo and Seattle. I've been all in on Seattle this whole season. This is also just a big game just in terms of potential sort of implications later on. The Bills are obviously one of the top teams in the AFC. The Seahawks are leading the NFC West right now and sort of a weird division just generally. The Seahawks looked a lot better after they got some defensive pieces back. They forced 3 turnovers against the Falcons and beat them pretty handily. This looks like the type of matchup for me where Buffalo could struggle. They don't blitz a lot. They don't get a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. And Geno Smith will absolutely eat you up if you let him get a clean pocket with that wide receiver trio of Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. I mean, there are a lot of ways for him to beat you with his arm if you give him a little bit of time. The spread is Buffalo -3 on a cross-country trip. Mitch, who are you liking for this game?
I'm really watching to see if DK Metcalf is going to play in the game, because I think that's going to come up huge in the decision for handicapping this. Amari Cooper, without having to look over to his receiver and get the play just given to him before touchdown passes, and maybe knowing the playbook a little bit, maybe being also in the favor of the Buffalo Bills here. Seattle just has that feeling that it's about to all just explode and implode for some reason to me. I don't know why. They just are hanging on a thread. And Buffalo, with the addition of Amari Cooper, who doesn't feel like to me like a me, like they have to force it into him, will let the ball just come to him within the system as opposed to other wide receivers that have been in Buffalo. I think that's going to be a big advantage, and I'm going to go with Buffalo, and they're going to start to roll here and challenge those Ravens as one of the best teams in the AFC.
John, tell us why you're taking Buffalo. Wow. Okay, sorry, you're muted here for a second. So while I'll get you unmuted, we'll let Jack handle this. Jack, who are you betting for this game?
Buffalo for sure, -3. I mean, come on, Seattle, that fluke game against the Falcons where they caught the Falcons on an off week. This team's about to implode, like Mitch says. I'm going Bills -3, baby.
Don't throw me. I like that you mixed me in, but then you threw me into like your Falcons kind of like.
If it looks like a trap,
I wasn't agreeing with it. You're like, oh,
don't bet Buffalo.
Yeah,
John?
that's the
We got Al. Is he
the
asleep
key to
at the wheel?
radio. The key to radio is when you make an argument, you also bring someone else onto the argument, and you're like, Mitch agrees with me,
I do.
even though Mitch doesn't agree. If you
Oh,
notice,
Building consensus.
yeah,
They look
John
like
will
the
do that
99
all the
Falcons.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
John.
they're the
He's
98
always
Falcons.
like, oh, Jay agrees when Jay doesn't agree. So, key to radio argumentation there is to just pull other people into your web of lies.
John, tell us who you're betting here.
I'll jump in.
Jay.
You want to talk about gambling? Throw your money on Seattle. What team is going to show up? Geno Smith drives me absolutely crazy. Absolutely nuts. I want Buffalo to win, but I think Seattle's going to cover.
All right, John, it sounds like you're unmuted. Everything's getting distorted, and now you're muted again.
I think I'm unmuted now. Obviously, we're in New York, and there's a lot of noise out in the street here, so I'm sorry about that. I love Seattle in this game, and I'm not a Seahawks fan. I really don't like a lot of things about their team. But if you look at the way they went to Atlanta last week, Atlanta was my best bet of the week. And I think they got a really good defense and a very well-balanced team. And they got dismantled. I mean, you look at that game. I watched that game. They were dismantled at home. This Seahawks team, there's something here that is beyond the surface that I don't think we're seeing. Yes, Geno Smith had a great game. I think it was Nate last week on our best bets who said Geno Smith, every prop I could get him, I'm betting him. I think he ran the table. I think he won every single prop. Smith carved up a very good Atlanta defense. They run the football. They've got a defense now, Seattle. They're at home. Buffalo can't stop the run. I mean, they're going to run this football down their throat. Teams have been doing it all season. They're going to jam it down their throat. I'm getting 3 at home. Seattle might be the sleeper team in the NFC. And the way they just cut through that Atlanta defense last week, I mean, I almost fell off my chair. So I like the Seahawks here. At home, Legion of Boom, +3.
John and I have agreed on very little for the last few months. I'm happy that we're back on the same team on something. I love that optimism about the Seattle Seahawks. It is very important to me that they win this game and get a little clearance from the rest of the NFC West. All right. Okay, so Sunday Night Football. We got to talk Sunday Night Football, then we'll get Monday Night Football, then we'll get out of here. Sunday Night Football, the big rivalry of the early 90s. Again, Dallas Cowboys traveling to the San Francisco 49ers. Their records are not what we thought. Both of them are 500 or below. The Dallas Cowboys kind of limp into this at 3-3. The Niners come in at 3-4. These are not the teams that we thought. I think that a lot of people thought that the Cowboys would be competitive in the NFC East. I think a lot of people thought that the Niners would run away with the NFC West. That has not been the case for either of these teams as they struggled to sort of find their identity, especially sort of offensively, I think. Obviously, there's been a lot of injuries for the Niners. With the Cowboys, it's mostly just been incompetence as usual, thanks to Mike McCarthy continuing to sink them under the tremendous weight of his incompetence. Okay. I mean, I don't even know how to begin to handicap this. I mean, my gut just says take the points because I don't think either of these teams are playing their best ball right now. And I think Cowboys +4.5 seems reasonable. Jay, what are you looking at here?
It's almost like a war of attrition. Ayuk is out. We've got, I don't know if Samuels is going to be able to play. Brock Purdy was criticized forever because he had too many weapons. And now we can't name 3.
Now he has no weapons.
Now he has no weapons, and the guy can't win. I can't stand Dallas. I just have this overall disdain for Dallas. And just about everything they do, which completely clouds my decision-making. I get it. I want to take the 49ers. I want to see Dallas lose, but I have no idea. I mean, maybe look at the total. I mean,
47.5.
47.5. I mean, let's try an overplay here.
All right.
That's funny. I kind of like the under in this game if we're looking at the total points. I mean, both of these offenses have not been great this year. Dallas usually has a pretty good defense. San Francisco can play good defense too. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the under at 47.5. If we're looking at some play, I do not like the 4.5. It's a weird number. I'd rather it be, a key number, 3 or 6, whatever. But I don't like a 4.5 point spread against two teams I don't really understand that well. So I'm going to go under 47.5 here.
At this moment, as everything falls apart for San Francisco's offense, it looks like things are coming together for Dallas's defense in terms of injuries, at least. It looks like Micah Parsons will be back. It looks like Deron Bland, cornerback for Dallas, is trending towards coming back, and Eric Kendricks, a linebacker, are all trending towards looking like they're going to play tomorrow night. So, Dallas was beset by injuries earlier in the season on their defense, but it looks like maybe now everyone's sort of starting to find their way back. Mitch, what are you thinking?
It's a bizarre world, right? So I think the Cowboys were undefeated at home last year, and this year they're undefeated on the road. Weirdly, 3-0. The special teams is going to come up big. Dallas has had one of the best special teams all season long. The 49ers recently had a punt block. They've had a kickoff return. Yeah, in a game where it kind of sucks this much, I think that's going to be a big difference. I hate it, but I'm taking with the points on the road. The road dogs going 4-0 on the road. Dallas Cowboys.
John, give us a final word on Sunday Night Football. All right.
Something's just wrong with that team, so I'm going to go with I'm going to take Dallas in 4.5. I mean, they're road warriors. If they were at home, I bet San Francisco. They can't win at home. There's a lot of pressure on McCarthy and this team at home. 4.5 Sunday night, close game, Dallas.
All right. John likes the Cowboys. Okay. Last game, Monday Night Football. We'll let Mitch lead with this, but just to sort of set the table for Mitch, briefly, we got the Giants. Nobody really cares about the Giants. That's just, whatever. But what is important is the Steelers. Russell Wilson played a lot better than almost anyone thought he would last week in his sort of season debut after they benched Justin Fields. Daniel Jones continues to sort of be Daniel Jones mostly. Mitch, what are you looking for in this game?
It feels like the Giants are 2-5 every single season, doesn't it? Just feels. Yeah.
Just go ahead and mark that down.
Yeah. So their struggles are out there everywhere. For the Steelers, the 5-2 start to the season is probably a little surprising. Obviously, we know Justin Fields was there along the way, but Russell Wilson, and I know he put up to whatever Collinsworth was calling them, the moon shots, and allowed the receivers to be able to get up and catch the ball. But I think what Russ showed is the command of the offense, where when he got to the line of the scrimmage, he was checking out of plays, he was setting up the line to it was comforting seeing that, and it was what the philosophy. And you saw Arthur Smith, you could see his true offensive philosophy coming out, where, oh wow, we can set up the run game with the pass game, and Russell Wilson at least allows that threat. So I think they are a little more dynamic, and -6 in the NFL, that's a big point spread, but I think it's deserved. The Steelers finally had a legit blowout victory that felt comfortable for the first time in about 3 or 4 years. And I think they pick up on that momentum against a struggling team and on Monday Night Football, where the Steelers excel on Monday Night Football too. So I would think that they would keep that momentum going, and I'll take the 6 and the Steelers.
All right, we got a couple more minutes, so we can kind of relatively quickly go around the horn, but it doesn't have to be rapid fire. Jay, what are you liking here?
I was shocked at how many points Russell Wilson and the Steelers were able to put up last week. I'm not a huge Russell Wilson fan, and I'm not a fan of disrupting a team that's also winning. But I am a believer in Mike Tomlin. He seems to figure out a way every year, mostly through defense. So the Giants, I have no idea what they bring to the table. I'm gonna go Steelers.
Jack?
I was so down on the poor Steelers last week. I thought they were gonna lose. I was all high on the Jets. I picked the Jets in my pool, and some pool I'm in, and was like one of the only people who picked a losing side that week in one of those pick the winner pools. I mean, I was the only one who took the Jets. And I'm not doing that again to the Steelers. So give me I'll take all the points, or I'll lay all the points. I'm just all in on the Steelers. Total reactionary bet. Just more about my journey as a football fan right now. I'm back on the Steelers now.
John, give me a tight 20 seconds here.
If you're the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers right now is your biggest nightmare to get to the Super Bowl. This team is getting better every week. Russell Wilson, the move to put him in his QB, all the criticism on their head coach, Tomlin, the guy made the right move. Steelers big. Steelers, look out.
All right. So that's all of our picks, and that's pretty much our show. Go ahead and follow us on all the socials. Follow us at Godzilla Wins Big on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Getter, every social media you can. Golf with Jay Delsing is up next. Also, go ahead and check our social.
WJFN, Goochland, Bonaire, Chester, 100.5, 107.7, 92.7.
All of our best bets for the weekend. So thank you, and have a great weekend. Good luck.